Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
We get calls.
Hey, how are you?
Well, it's, yeah.
Any sense? Hey. All right, good. How you doing? Good to see you too. Really?
We got a little excuse with COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of definitely, I'm sure
You
that's
coming
it.
down here, you just helping out? Definitely just that sound. Delay, a little bit, delay, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to invest with me. I was working going through there, like, not my problem.
Well, yeah, that's, yeah, if there wasn't any money in escrow, it's gone, and, you know.
That's the biggest frustration I have with was the money escrow to go. Or if, so this lady, she just sold my house, 3 years later you do it, she's not looking to fail. I'm gonna say it's the previous person, they're gonna say screw you, I was working when I sold it to you, and then it was a fault, because you know, we don't have time, but you can't go back and get it broke exactly 3 years ago.
Sure, oh, absolutely.
You know, she's lady for once a day, they move a mountain.
That's.
And the ones that sell and they transfer right away, they don't get it done, and then the new people move in, especially the lot lines.
Yeah, then you
Trying
have,
to get them
yeah.
to realize that, you know, you can't, try and break it, you're getting the same thing again. Maybe a different brand name or the same brand name. So, or you're gonna have to do something to it, so you have to use it properly. Well, my next one.
That's my neighbor worried me, it's elderly couple, grandkids, occasionally go visit, not often, but you know, at least at their house. But I think of, let's say they move or whatever, and they sell it somewhere, it's a family of 4, God knows that's septic, because we've been there 10 years, they were there almost 15 to 25 years, and a little old lady and her husband, they caused that much damage, and you know, family of 4 movement, it was just gonna wreck it.
Well, I'm gonna be surprised how accustomed that all gets to that usage.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It gets accustomed to that usage, and then all of a sudden, you're right, family for movement, and it's a total different usage.
Yeah, well, I builds up to a certain level.
Hey. And that's that hard explanation. Most people is like, as long as money disappears, I don't care. I flush it.
Well, you know, you can't wash it, you can't wax it, you can't trade it in 3 years and show up your neighbors, so why do you want that?
Won't very much money in the bank. That's exactly what I was saying. The different issue was, that's the reason I like your house. It's not a granite countertop. You go, hey, listen, this is upgraded from linoleum to granite. No, it's never been, you can't touch it.
New floor mat today.
It's so $20,000. I used to wait mine.
I feel haggard sometimes.
I know.
You know, it doesn't, the house is still the same house.
Yeah.
Rushing around all day.
But
Get my kids to
without
school
it,
before I went to that meeting.
If anything, right?
Yeah.
people have to understand.
So, get ready, get ready.
I was talking with one
ready?
guy.
I'm ready.
No, I got caught.
Yeah.
I didn't think so. I just thought I'd check.
I specifically requested
Oh, God, it's the guy you're out there for. Take care.
Oh, it goes over my 10 minutes, so I was like, all right.
We get those a year.
Oh, did you? Okay, awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully people, you know, if it's there, the state wants us to promote it, so hopefully
And you know what, it's.
I can get some money and all that stuff.
Right.
So you're all ready to go? Ready to go. Yeah. I told Ann we have one of the directors from
No.
She'll be here tonight. Yeah.
Those do cost more than you can go back. But
Yeah.
it's hard to explain to somebody. You can't polish, you can't wax, you
Yeah.
can't show it off.
I mean, nobody's good. Yeah, I mean, I had a couple guys from some experience. That's what I heard.
That's exactly it. It's a very difficult thing to explain to people. So.
But the thing that gets their attention is when you tell them the water that you drink has gone through a kidney once before, that starts to hurt them also.
Yeah.
Nice day out
So you have to say,
there.
that's
It is.
back around.
It is, yeah. Were you on Sunday?
And that's
Yeah, well, this weekend I was out with cross all weekend with my
So
son.
much water on the.
Good, yeah, good. I think we helped out one guy at the end there. Like, this was tough for 6, 7 years, so we got him a solution.
Ain't through any more land, ain't through any more water.
No, right. The machine that makes water.
So, yeah, so we're using it. Well, so.
Oh, sure.
Spend tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm with you. You're from,
I'm from my house because I have a septic jet system that I get a permit for. Because of something like a pre-sale of a house.
I didn't know you're the one that I think everybody else knows.
Trying to get it figured out.
so.
All right.
As we were just talking about, Dan, can I borrow you for 1 second?
Hello.
Dan Lewis,
How are you?
I'm development director, okay?
Having an MIA.
Yeah, I needed something to perk me up right now.
No, so my daughter's graduating from high school. So, I got one, I got a 14-year-old, I got an 18-year-old.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. I got water for you. If you want something else like a pop, let me know and I'll go grab it for you. And there's obviously candy.
Hilarious. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
So,
Yeah.
I've been trying to get.
We're expecting to have a couple of people. Not a ton,
did.
but a couple.
I'm
So,
glad we have people.
yeah, this gentleman right here in the green or neon yellow shirt, he sold his or bought a house 3 years ago and just got his for sale property.
So,
The exact thing we're talking about.
it's funny you say that. I just got off the phone with Trevor. He was telling me that we just got a check in the mail from the IRS for $1,200 from 2020 because they just processed his quarterly taxes that he paid for 2020 now. And he's like, well, we overpaid, so they gave us a check. He's like, they're literally that far behind. I was like, isn't that amazing?
Right? Imagine if you were a business and you said, don't worry, customer, I'll get back to you in 2 years. They'd be like, no, I'll go somewhere
Has
else.
that though, the IRS, because it's like, you just paid your 2021.
True, yeah, so minus a year, right?
Yeah.
But I told him, though, I was
They're
like,
on different schedules.
because he did cashier's check, I was like, what if they just processed, like, what if that was a personal check or something right now that you were not anticipating coming out of your account or something, you know?
I try to tell them
It's like,
everything. We try
oh,
to tell
Or
them.
if you close that account and it's 2 years later, and then you get a bill 6 months from now saying you didn't pay it, like,
Yeah, and you
Unless you got
know,
cash.
it's just frustrating. You know, I think the frustrating part is that all this stuff just adds up. It's like tolerance. It's like, you know, if
well,
your
you
year's
think you're
not,
doing the right thing, and, you know, a good job and keeping up on your stuff, and
and if your year's not going too bad, it's like, well, what's one hiccup? Well, you got all the stress of COVID that people are stressed out to wazoo about,
Right.
stress that can do stuff, inflation, jobs, and then you got something else, and it's just gas. $4.50 a freaking gallon.
I just filled up, well, and some places are limiting the amount you can get. I know like Bell and 306, you can only get $50, and another gas
It's
station.
always been like that though.
I don't know.
It's every time I've been, it's like,
My friend
since I've
knows
lived
that.
here, it's been like that.
And I text them, and they didn't answer me, of course, but I said, is this normal? Because I feel like I've gotten gas there before, but I don't remember if I filled up or what. And somebody else posted on Facebook that another gas station in the area is limiting. And then, but I just filled up $80 to fill up my tank, which isn't that bad considering my car is like 17 miles to the gallon, but.
Well, there's a lot of, I mean, I know, the guys I know who are in different industries, they're, one of them's a food guy, he's like, the food and gas shortage is real. He's like, we are seeing the start of it, because it's not gonna be impacting us for 6 to 12 months though. I mean, everything's gotta flux out, because the reason why food prices are going up is just not enough to supply the demand. There's just not that much.
Electricity prices right now, and that's gonna have a real big, we're up like 30%. So you just like fire.
Yeah, somebody posted, not our state, a different state, but it was what they were, got a letter in the mail, and the letter was saying it's going up like 25% for next year. And they're like, how do you, like, nobody's getting 25% savings, so how do you, I mean, it wouldn't be really that, it'd be like, you know, let's say 5% instead of 3.
Yeah, right.
You can't accommodate that kind of stuff.
Something's gonna give.
So.
Did you meet the new, Dan Moore?
Did Dan get out of here over to you guys?
No, he says I'm not.
Dan Moore. This is our new, Gordon Farmer Health Director.
Yeah, we need to.
It's a little bit everything.
I don't know anything about the system.
Yeah, it's a little bit everything. We're doing these as a, Tuesday, Thursday.
So you're doing it
Yeah,
around.
it's comedy, like, so that way there's comedy.
Right.
So it's just a special meeting, open
I am,
everybody,
yeah.
have everybody here, announce around, talk about the voice of concern. But, you know, you always do it, nobody wants to sit and think, one, two, three,
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of really.
No, I saw something.
Yeah.
Lake, oh.
Well, they sent it to the sauce.
It does, yeah, it grows really well. So we have some. Yeah, I mean, we have some, there's people that use them all the time on things like that. So just call and ask them. We got the people.
It's like, yeah.
You call somebody and they get some just go,
I need to call you about real estate
right,
stuff.
hopefully it stays that way.
You might as well, everybody else does.
About that. Just wanted to get your thoughts.
I'll get sure mine.
I'm gonna shut this down.
Dan, this is Jerry. Jerry's the
Long
kind
time no
of.
go. I know. I've got 100 excuses.
I tell Dan about it.
Rich daughter graduated, having this huge party at my house, living out of town, redoing my patio, trying to get air conditioning put in, and I get her ready for surgery in July. I can tell you every time. What else do you?
Well, whatever.
That's if you find a company. You got it done. You're now it's been insane. You know, it was a
Actually, we did this for all the installers.
I don't know, it's not. That's the other. You got somebody. So anyway, it's just.
Call the spot.
Yeah, we're ready. You're ready more than me.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
They want fried chicken.
I just don't want to talk too much.
Okay, you ready? Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming. This is a special Board of Health meeting.
We do not have it. The agenda is only what was listed, and that's just the for sale property and,
Okay.
and things of that nature.
So this evening, we're going to be discussing the for sale of property, which, as I'm sure you all know, we have a mandatory point of sale in this county, and so we're here to talk about that tonight. So do we want to start with a review from our EH director first, or?
Yeah, Dan's got a couple things, bullet pointers to kind of go over stuff.
Just for sale property, you want to cover?
We'll touch on O&M too, because really for sale property and O&M are so connected, that's gonna make a difference. Dan will also provide some talking points as to the other programs that are competing for time, because the reality is there are multiple programs competing for time, and some of them are more important than others to some degree. So I'll let Dan kick it off with just some information so that you guys have a better understanding.
Yeah, so just some basic observations of looking over the processes and stuff happening here. So start with the for sale property. Currently, I mean, the staff is pretty much does that a lot of the time. And right now there's an estimated kind of backlog of over 3,000 properties that need to be tested. And that's just since the start of 2020. Currently, I'm in court about once a week, and I've been dealing with properties going back to 2012. So there's just a huge backlog of properties that need to be addressed on this program. So the other things, one is there's semi-public commercial septic systems, which we are contracted to do inspections on. And there's about 220 a year that we really need to do that we haven't been getting to yet. So we're behind on those.
How many did you say?
Those are semi-public commercial septic systems, so there's about 220 of those. And so those are not residential systems, but those are commercials, usually small businesses. Larger ones are high-strength waste. Typically, the Ohio EPA ends up taking over, but a lot of health departments subcontract that out to take on the inspection of those smaller systems.
And they're required to be inspected yearly, you said?
There's two kinds. So if you have a discharging system where they have like a small patch plant on the property, those are required to be inspected once a year. If you have a soil absorption system at the business, and that's once every 3 years. So typically there's, what you do is you just divide up that number and do a third of them every year. And then we should be submitting a yearly report to the EPA on the results of those inspections.
So could I ask how long it's been since they've not been completed?
I've not found a date for inspection on there yet.
Thank you.
Yep. And then just the other thing, and just this is slightly different, but we just do have a lot of over.
Mr. Lark said just came in today. Again, the reason that it kind of brings to this is it's the competing factors for time. We have limited staff, and when you start expounding out on all these things that we need to do well, it's just that much less time for every program that we have. FSOP, or for sale of property, FSOP, is not a state required program. Operation and maintenance is. Operation and maintenance, we do have to get something in the ball rolling. There's a soft tentative date from the state that's 1/1/2025 is when we should be moving on it.
What's that date from? Because I didn't find it in the
Yeah,
code anywhere.
it's just a soft date by the state that they
Okay.
expect some movement by then. Otherwise, there'll probably be some discussions being had at some level, more than likely with us, obviously, but at some level. If we do FSOP and O&M at the same time, we'll have to significantly increase staff. I think, do you know how many, Dan, after you mentioned?
It was a number, I thought there were potentially 9 sanitarians or some people doing that type of work for all the programs at that point.
So right now, we don't have 9 people, obviously, so we have to significantly increase staff. Clerical would have to increase, but it's another clerical load. We're also theoretically hitting people twice. So not only are you doing the for sale product, but how it changes hands with cash, we're also going to do the operation and maintenance. For sale of property is retroactive or reactive, where there's a problem that exists and you try to correct it after the fact. Operation and maintenance is more proactive, and it hopefully catches it at the start. We're looking at multiple options to help also clear the backlog through use of contractors or agents of the health department, which could be installers or other people that have that background that we can train to do that, which would be some assistance to us. We're still working through the details of all those things. The reality of us being 3,300 behind and people getting letters 3 years later, like Mrs. Allistock last time, is a really hard thing to explain to people.
Yes.
And again, it's as you dig deeper, you find different things. Mr. Lark has, and the team has, finding how many we're behind. And 3,300 from 2020 until now, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
2020.
So theoretically, there could be more. There's some adding up right now. To get operation and maintenance up and running and off the ground, even with Mr. Lark's experience with that, and Ashley Winter as a new sanitarian, on a non-required program. Not saying it's not a good program, non-required. So if we're able to put a theoretical end date of 6/30/2022, that'd be the last time we'd accept those. Other than, we did talk about having them as a optional program where if you wanted to do it when you sold your house, we would prioritize that to get out there, make sure it's in a reasonable time frame. We can still do that. But we need the time to get operation and maintenance up and running, which with an expectation of 30 to 45,000 septic systems, which is either the most in any county or second in any county in Ohio, that's a lot. Not to mention the manpower and the time that it takes to get that program well thought out, well laid out, educate realtors, educate the public, educate installers, all of those different things, and the service providers. It's a lot of education. you probably want to have meetings here where they can come in from the public and ask questions as to how did you get the fee, where did you get the fee from, why is it what it is, what do I have to do, how long is the permit good for? Those are a lot of things that are going to take a lot of time, and if we have all these competing time factors, my fear is it's not going to get done, not in a timely manner.
How many sanitarians do we have now?
I want to say I counted 6. We're down one right now. 5, sorry, 5.
5.
Yeah, and we're down 1 right now. We're down another one who's coming back, hopefully, but just not in the office right now. I posted the job over a month ago. We've had 1 applicant. I just got 1 today, so hopefully I have 2 applicants. Neither of them are RSs, they're RSITs.
Is the goal to get to 9?
I don't think we need 9 if we don't have all the programs at the same time, but we definitely need more than we have right now, because we're not even treading water. We're losing water every day,
right.
and it's not the service that the residents deserve. It's, in my opinion, I would like to put a soft date if we do stop FSOP on 6/30. I would like to put a soft date in our heads that by 1/1/2023, O&M is up and running. It'll probably start with NPDS or something that we have a little more access to and is easily handled. But we'd have O&M, at least some form of it, up and running by 1/1/2023. And that way we can, if nothing else, it puts a timeline in our heads and the sanitarians' heads, like this isn't something you're gonna put off until December, and then go, oh shoot, it's gonna be that the ball has to be rolling. We have to stay on top, we have to keep moving and go in that direction. But it's a lot. I mean, Mr. Lark has experience in it, Ashley Winters, our new sanitarian, has experience in it. It's not one of those things you snap your fingers, you have an O&M program tomorrow. It's something you're going to plan for 4 or 5 months, and then you're going to try to execute, and then you're going to have little bumps that you're going to find out, you didn't account for this, you didn't account for that. We're also looking at the revenue offset, because there is a difference in revenue, and some of it's an unknown, because some of the septic systems might not be on paper somewhere. So there may be more, or may have exactly what we think we have. And you don't want to charge too much, you don't want to charge too little. You got to be somewhere in the middle.
My
Yes.
one question / concern is if we put this end date on FSOP, which I absolutely support, the problem is the backlog. So if we have a soft start date of January 1, 23, and that's O&M, well, we still have to catch up on FSOP, so we're inevitably going to have 2 programs running at the same time.
Yeah, my hope is, so through discussion with legal, we talked to Linda Applebaum with the County Prosecutor's Office. Her current opinion is equal application of the law means that we have to do the backlog. So we cannot just wave a magic wand and say we're not going to do anything that's outstanding. There was a question posed by a board member as to citing how you got to that conclusion. But that's why I'm hoping to be at least 2 sanitarians heavier than where we were at. So we'd be at like 7, give or take. And that is to help with that, because I think Mr. Lark and the crew are looking at it. You're talking 3 full-time sanitarians, 2 years? 2 years just to clear the backlog and doing nothing else either.
So do you think it's a realistic goal to have January 1 for the new program to roll out?
It would be a soft goal, but I think if we don't set it, we're always going to find, there's always a reason, right? There's always a reason. I think there needs to be a soft goal. And if we don't meet it, we need to talk to the 5, well, there's 4 here, but when Lynn's here too, 5 of you, and say, here's why we aren't going to meet that goal, or here's why we need a 6-month extension. But at least then there's something on paper where you can hold us accountable as well, and we should be getting closer to that time frame.
That 3,000 number backlog, has that been growing over time?
Yeah, and it's growing right now, obviously, as well, because we aren't keeping up. I'm not proud to say that.
Yeah.
And this has been talking about Mrs. Wendell. She has the most knowledge of the health department. This program has never been ahead since it started. It's been behind.
What year did it start? Are you aware of that?
2002, I think is the date she threw out there. It's
Okay.
almost exactly 20 years, I think is what she said. There are many dates thrown out there, but I think she said when she looked back, it was 2002.
And there is not an option to opt out of a Geauga public health inspection and use a private inspector at this point, correct?
No, the FSOP.
Okay. So according to the code, my reading of the code, our current FSOP program does not meet the requirements set forth.
Of operation maintenance?
Correct.
Correct.
Because we would not be grandfathered in, the start date would grandfather us in,
Correct.
but if you can't use a private inspector, then you would not be.
And
That's
our understanding,
understanding.
is FSOP was created at a time to hopefully kind of be an O&M program, but not be an O&M program.
To deter sewers from coming in.
Correct, yeah.
Is what it was.
It, unfortunately, it does not meet the current definition of operation and maintenance, which we've had multiple discussions with the state about. And, I mean, FSOP will likely turn into O&M, but the current as it sits will never be an O&M. It won't meet the criteria to be one, which is the concern, because obviously we don't want someone else coming in and doing the work for us. We want ourselves in control of how the work is done. We want to set those criteria. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and it's a lot. It's one of those things that I mean, this is a years and years it will be going on that we're still getting everybody out. So you can't do all 40. Let's say there's 30,000 just as the lowest number. We can't put all 30,000 on it 1/1/2023 because theoretically you'd have to do the inspections at the same time. We're never going to get to 30,000 systems every year or 5 years. So instead, it'll be a cycling period. We'll determine what that permit would be, and then we take so many a year, and we re-up their permits by doing inspections. So that's why I say when there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of planning, because I don't want this to be a thing where we knee-jerk react, and then a year from now we go, my gosh, why did we choose that when we knew it was an issue? We just went too fast.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, sorry.
I would just say, so it's clear, I mean, my recommendation is if you go forward with O&M, I would not have the health department do the inspections. Let the people pick who they want to do inspection. Let the private industry
Yeah,
do
agreed.
the inspections, not us. So I just want to make sure that that would be not the preferred way. Otherwise, you would have to have a staff of who knows how many to do all those inspections.
More than 9 though, right? Yeah, and they can, and hopefully they can do it cheaper as well. I mean, that's also a hope, is that they can do it cheaper than we can. And why would you not want to save money and still get the same product?
Well, and let local businesses thrive and
Exactly.
do business in Geauga County.
Right.
Exactly. So those are some of the.
And I think, so the goal is probably not to implement an O&M program full speed. We're going to start a little at a time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's a way to do it where you can pick one smaller class of systems that's kind of get your feet wet, get your procedures up, all down and methods down, and grow from there.
And as an example, I believe, like you're familiar obviously with Lake County, when they implemented their O&M program, they had pretty high, and they have a lot less septics than Geauga County, and they had a lot less, less septics, and yet they still, I think, did you not still fall behind your expectations when you started?
Yeah. I mean,
So it does take a while before it comes
there's
into
a
play.
lot of, we had a plan on paper, but once you start getting into the education and the computer program and the mailing procedures, because we do send out a lot of mail, and developing a website so people can try to make it easier to pay and send stuff back and forth. And, there's a lot of things that when you sit down and look at a piece of paper and write up a plan, that you kind of, the nuts and bolts, some of the stuff, there's a lot to learn still in the.
And also, which is very helpful because you don't always find this. So Mr. Morgan is the county administrator. Jerry, you want to wave your hands? I don't know if everybody knows who you are. So there's Jerry. He is, hey, he's willing to help us out with some of the mailing for education amongst things, which has been phenomenal. I mean, obviously it helps the county as well. But again, it's going to be a huge education piece. It's huge. So having the county agencies help, another county agency's help, is only going to help us. And I think that's the beauty of Geauga. We're willing to work together and try to keep our septic system. That's our goal. Most of you know, I've been on septic my entire life, and it's nice to have control over things. So that's kind of what we're looking at, is that. Any additional questions for Dan or myself, just to make sure we're all on the same page?
So you're floating the date of June 30th, but you're also saying that the backlog is growing every day.
We would not take any new applications after June 30th, so it would not be a required program. The backlog, though, would be probably another 2 to 3 years, we'll put it that way, 2 to 3 years of just completing the backlog that exists as of today.
And I honestly, I think that there will still be work in that program for many years after that, based on just the dates that I'm working on in the court cases right now.
It's hard to explain this when you're going to court for a 10-year-old case. Yeah, so there's still many things to be done, but again, if we never come up with a date, even if we wait till December to talk about this again,
No,
it's
but I
8
guess.
more months of backlog.
My question's the other way, though. Why June 30th and not, May 17th?
Getting it in
Is that
place,
your-
educating, make sure we talk to realtors. There's a lot that goes into play with that, because the regulation change has to come from you guys. That's not something Dan and I can do, understand from legal. So if you guys said, hey, we're okay with that, we then would start doing the education piece with everybody. Because right now, it should be ingrained, not everybody, but it should be ingrained, hey, you have to go do this. You reach out to them, here's how this goes, you'll hear from this. It's gonna be different now, or theoretically it'd be different. We would still do optional though, is the thought, and that way if someone really wanted that, or they thought, hey, I wanna make sure, then we'll try to help.
And just from my experience, there's some, what are they
Banks,
called?
or they're-
Some types of loans that do
Lenders.
require like, they require health
FHA,
department, yes.
VA?
Yeah, they require health department to do the inspection, so that would just leave it as an option, just to make sure that service is offered.
So I would, so how long have you been here, Mr. Lark? You
Here.
said 5 weeks?
Something like that, yeah.
So I would like to say I'm really impressed with all of the work you've been doing here, and sounds like there's a lot of things that we've turned up that maybe, it's too bad they weren't addressed previously, but hopefully you're gonna hang in there and get everything back where it
Yep.
needs to be.
Good group
So,
of people here, they're working hard, so we'll,
That's good to hear.
I keep Diet Coke in stock for Dan, that's what he runs on, so.
So does anyone else have any comments?
I mean, I still don't understand, not to ask the question again, I still don't understand why we need to do this in June at this time to set the date. Because, I mean, can't we send out a letter to realtors tomorrow? Is that, Dan's saying yes?
We actually have a few people in the audience that are real estate agents and stuff. I'm sure that a lot of people probably would like to speak, but
The
I
board,
don't, do you?
the board can set the date. I mean, I don't set that date. I'm just giving you.
I understand, but I mean, you kept proposing it, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to hear
Yes.
why, if
That
there
was
was a reason for that, or if you're just throwing out.
Mostly to give us time to react.
prepare.
If-
So I think the
if
thing is too is the big change, let's say we set the date tonight or tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah.
The education that simply have to happen is staff know that if for some reason somebody called or came in about it, that this is no longer a requirement.
Yeah,
And-
that doesn't seem that
That doesn't seem like a bad
complicated
thing, that people would say,
No.
oh, cool, I don't have to do
That's right.
this.
See,
Versus if it continues, you have people every day that have money in escrow that they can't access for 3 years. I mean, it seems like this program, every day that it continues, it's hurting the residents of this county.
And
we-
by ending it today versus June 30th, we're preventing a further backlog.
That's right.
And that is 100%, you can do that. I threw out there as a date, so it's end of a quarter, but we can do that tonight. If the board decided they wanted to set a date as of, 11:59 tonight.
Yep.
I would set it as 11:59, that way if it sells their house, it doesn't cause did I sell it at 11:57 or 11:54?
Yeah.
You could set that date, that's up to you as the board
Okay.
to change that.
Yeah, I was just asking logistically, is there something I'm not thinking about? But it
No, it
seems
would
like
be
it
worth-
should be a fairly straightforward process to educate.
You gotta
the
give the
public.
staff, you gotta give everyone a heads up,
Yeah, I
a
mean,
couple
we-
days or a week at least.
Right,
I would think,
keep
to make a
in
big
mind,
major change.
we've had this in effect for 20 years, I get what you're saying, Carolyn, and it does make a lot of sense. Yeah, let's quit it right now, but I think it would be much, what I found, anytime you make a new rule or you eliminate a new rule, there's always consequences that you don't realize till after we make that, right? And so I think, by maybe being a little bit more cautious, putting out a marketing plan so that we get, make people aware, I think that's
So the staff
kinda
knows if they get phone calls
important,
tomorrow or
and-
the next
yeah.
day, they know.
so.
And
But
again-
I'm just one member of the board, of
It's,
course.
it's a
but-
date, because you guys could also, not knowing each of your minds, I don't know if you're gonna come back and say September 30th is what we choose.
Right.
Is there a
It's-
realistic compromise between
Yeah.
today and June 30th?
Can I just speak real quick?
Sorry, go ahead.
Being someone who speaks with and deals with the public and the installers on a daily basis, we try very hard, and I'm trying very hard to bridge the gap on a daily basis. trying extremely hard to just end something overnight and not having the correct verbiage and not knowing how to properly answer questions is, I hate to say it, but not the right way to do it. We would be so misinformed and giving the incorrect information. It's hard enough at times to put ourselves out there and to just end something and not be able to correctly steer someone in the right direction, I think would be doing an injustice to Geauga County.
And Mrs. Wendell wasn't able to be here, so Joelle is setting in. Joelle is actually one of our front clerks, front staff that every day deals with this.
So would it be beneficial to choose a date in between, but then create some scripted language for the front desk to say, in case these questions are asked, this is what's replacing, or this is what's coming, and what do you do in the meantime, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we'd be looking at, because I would hope, you know, the goal is whatever we do it well enough where the average person who has to interact with us understands the reasoning, and we can explain it properly. Because again, you know, the fear is sometimes if you tell someone one thing and the realtor says, no, I've done this for 20 years, this is how you do it. And, you know, maybe Joelle says, you know, I kind of know, but I don't know, but it just causes that frustration of, so am I putting money in escrow or not putting money in escrow? How much do I put in escrow? There's a lot of things that are.
We are asked those questions on a daily basis about escrow, and
So Joelle, in your opinion, from a staff perspective, what do you think is reasonable? Like, you need an in-service of some sort, you need to explain it to them. What do you think is reasonable?
I mean, honestly,
As an opinion.
I can only speak on what I know.
Right.
And what I know is with dealing with the public, and I want to be best service to the public and to Geauga County. And we deal a lot with the realtors as well, and we want to give the best information that we possibly can. My goal is to not misguide someone. Whatever we can give, that's the best verbiage, the best direction, so we're all on the same page. And I don't know if that's the board coming together with Dan and Adam, that there's set guidelines at this point, so everyone's on the same page and maybe rolling something out at the same time. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that is. I just know it would be nice that we all have kind of the same guidelines to go off of. And
Are there staff meetings, Adam, like where they all? get
Yeah, we would hold staff
Hold
meetings.
staff
Usually it's-
meeting, give them a
usually it's
little
divisional.
in-service and.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's not supposed to be, it's gonna be a lot of, you're trying to do 20 years of, you know, they're probably their automatic response, you know, well, 16 years for Eric and a little bit less for everybody else, but it's that, here's how you respond, here's how you, it's a little bit different now.
And it also, for me, would be rough. You have people that literally just paid for, I had 9 people that paid for sale of properties today. To then have them call tomorrow stating, I just paid for that yesterday, why didn't you tell me that this was happening?
That's gonna happen whenever the date's set.
I understand that, but if there's some type
Like
of,
a 2-week warning or something to soften it, maybe, I don't know.
possibly, I mean, maybe there's something that's put on our website. We direct people to our website on a daily basis. Maybe people would opt to not list their home at this point and wait a month. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that
That's a
best.
good point.
You just don't
You know.
take the money.
Yeah.
Simple as
Okay,
that.
so
I mean,
we're-
put it that.
we have 14 people, so why don't we give everybody the opportunity to speak?
We're actually do public
and then
comment
we'll
actually
do
now.
more.
So-
We're actually do public comment now, so we can speak.
Sure.
We like to do public comment. I think there's about 14 of yous in here, so you're all welcome to speak. Normally, we like to limit it to 2 minutes. So whoever wants, where you want to start then, from the right or from the left?
We can start with the chair. I mean,
Okay, Mr. Morgan, you want to say something? It's your chance.
Not this time.
Okay, how about Steve?
Not yet.
Okay, well, that's quick. How about the, I'm sorry, who are you?
Zach.
Zach. How about you, Zach? You want to say something?
Not at this time.
What's the reason we're getting rid of the for sale property?
So kind of we're just talking about.
Understaffed?
What's that?
Is it understaffed?
It's both understaffed, and we're also about 3,300 inspections behind.
Okay.
It's not a required program for the state. O&M, operation and maintenance, is required. We do have to switch to operation and maintenance, and for sale of property does not meet that requirement.
How many people will be needed for O&M?
Hopefully the staff we have right now, plus we do need 2 additional people to clear the backlog, so those 3,300 inspections, we do have to address those.
Why do you keep saying soft close? Soft close date?
Soft date.
We're gonna say this date, but actually it's gonna be this date?
No, I mean, the hope is that date, but operation and maintenance theoretically is gonna cover almost all, will cover all the septic systems. We would probably start with something like NPDS as a starting point, as an example, and then roll in, because we can't just take everybody in the county, all 30,000+ systems, and say you're on it as of 1/1/2023, because we couldn't give the inspections that way. So instead, there's usually a 5.
Are you sampling them?
What's that?
Are you gonna sample them?
Well, that's part what we're talking about is
That's
the
in
private
discussion.
side can do that. So that's some of the discussion with operation and maintenance is that the private sector can do that. And we don't want to do the sampling because of staffing alone.
Are you gonna trust people on the public side to give you true information?
Well, I'll let Mr. Lark explain how it works. It's the same in most other counties, so I'll let
Yeah, that's a large workload. I mean, we could hire 8 people and just one sample this. But for have in the private sector where people can do it, service providers can do it, and then at that point, if you're doing that as a county, we'd be remiss in not having an audit pro come out and follow behind you guys occasionally, make sure you're doing what they do.
How many places are in the county?
It's about 1,800.
How long does it take them to come and take the sample?
How long does it take sample? Depends a little bit.
I mean, you got drive time.
Yeah, drive time, you have to go there, get some water flowing. Sometimes it depends on how hard it is to turn the pump on. It's a spigot or you gotta run out to the road. So, I mean, you might be looking an hour or 2 per
Going
hour.
with 1,800, how many sanitary do you need?
I haven't figured that one out yet, but probably a couple, at least a couple, full-time.
All right, thanks.
Now I have a comment. So I was working with Dave Sage, who's no longer here, and we're ramping up to do analysis at our environmental lab. Now I'm finding out that you won't be using the environmental lab that the county has. Will the samplers be certified to take the samples?
Well, they don't have to be, they'd have to be a service provider. I mean, I haven't gotten into the planning of where the samples have to go or anything like that, so I don't have all of that laid out. But they're required to take a yearly sample, and they're not
But I
required.
need to know from my lab.
Yeah, and I can let you know as soon as I know, but, I mean, right now, the way the county's operating, the county sent out a letter to all those people, and it's an optional thing from the county. So I don't think there's anything that's been sent that I know about the lab required using the county lab. Right now, it's
I
just.
didn't say it was requirement to use the county lab, but that was the agreement I had with former people.
Oh, okay. I have not seen anything about that at all.
Dan, to add to his question, what do other counties do in terms of who does the sampling?
It's a mix. Lake County, we do it ourselves. We've done it since the program since 2007, where we have staff do it.
And do you work with the local college?
We have an agreement with Lake County College where we hire their students as their lab. Kind of a portion of the public health and all that. There are some other counties that don't really follow this. There's a requirement on those.
Thank you.
How long is the sample good for once you take it? Before you get to the lab?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm sure you put it on when you take it though. So it's probably a couple hours.
Okay, next. Rose, you have something to say?
Well, I just wanted to know, the letters that you sent out from 2019, we have to be, so I'm being sued now because of the house I sold. And, years later, they get a letter saying they're in violation of all of the above because I did not do an SB because I knew it was going to fail. So I did a lot of help in soils. And then, COVID kind of hit me. So what am I going to tell my lawyer or my buyer now because they're suing me for not putting in a system? And now it's hard because they have trashed the yard. So I'm going to have to get either new soils or blah, 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 blah. And that was not in my agreement or in my quote that I gave to them as to what we were going to do. Zach was out there, all of the above. So why are you sending out a letter that's saying, oh, you're in violation when I don't technically think I was in violation because I knew and I took the steps to, I started the process, but just didn't get it all done because, you know.
So you haven't done what the law requires right now?
No, I have not done that, but why would you send a letter out saying?
Because you haven't done that. I mean, that's the reason the letter goes out. That's,
3 years later? So that's what I'm gonna tell my lawyer, well, they're just negligent, so now I'm gonna get sued.
Well, and Rose, that's what we're trying to correct.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, that's.
I mean, I understand that, but like, what is the solution to all that? I just have to go put a septic system in, where now I have to redo the whole thing because they trashed the yard, it's probably gonna be an NPDS. Now I have to spend all this extra money because I couldn't do what I was gonna do.
that's part of the problem with being 3 years behind on things.
Yeah, but that's not my problem.
I understand.
Okay.
But also ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. So if there's a law that's on the books, people need to follow it. They could come in and pay the thing, got the evaluation done,
Well, I
follow
didn't
through
have
with
to
all the
because I
steps.
started on all the other process, and you, apparently, the county didn't even realize I started the process, because they said they did nothing, and nothing was even filed.
Well, I can talk to you afterwards about it.
So, I'm just asking.
I mean, that's why we're trying to correct what we have right now, because it's Mrs. Allistock that came in last time, the gentleman here today, they got a letter many, many years later.
I mean,
It's, if I was the homeowner, I would not be happy either.
Right.
I mean, not, 6 months later is one thing, which is still kind of rough. 3 years later
3
is,
years, yes.
you're kind of like,
So now you just gonna keep going.
yeah.
But the program's been around for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody selling a house in Geauga County knows that.
They, I can tell you they obviously do not, because we hear about it all the time, and they are not aware of it.
Very few times you hear about that.
It's-
I mean, I knew about it.
You know, these realtors over here,
What happens with properties that have letters of violation on the books and then term ends and then the house is sold at a later date? Those letters of violation still active or are they null and void? How does that?
They would still stay active because it's still, we are told from prosecutor, we have to enforce everything up until that date. So if we picked, whether it's tonight or it's June 30th or it's whatever date, we have to enforce that stuff as if it was in effect as of that date. And all backlogs. We did ask that question because that's a natural question somebody would have asked is, if I'm a backlog, am I just forgiven? Am I still gonna do it? But as of right now, understanding, I want to say she's called it equal application of the law is the specific word she used. And that is, if it was in effect at the time, you have to treat it as if it was in effect continuously for that itself.
His homeowner had inspection and had a new jet system put in with the off-lot discharge out there, the township road ditch, and there's a permit, and I came from somewhere with city water and city sewer, so I was kind of ignorant to that, other than it's a septic system, I didn't know how it worked, but that was nothing I knew about, and the inspection, I called the installer, asked a couple questions, I called the manufacturer, and they're like, well, if it's put in properly, everything's good, this system works. And you're still under warranty, so if it was working, I didn't know about this, the permit and the inspection before the sale. So now I sent my $480 in, I talked to Joel 2 weeks ago. Sent it in, cashed my check, and I'm like, well, if someone's supposed to call me, that's why I'm, and I talked to Dan, and he said, there was a backlog. I'm just trying to figure it out, and it said it's going to go to the prosecutor's office if the backlog's too long. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to be,
And I want to clarify, when I say all the time, it's not like there's 80 people coming in a day, but there's similar stories to yours that are, I wasn't told when it happened. Maybe it was, maybe it was a document, you didn't see it, maybe your realtor forgot about it, maybe they told you, there's any possible.
My realtor was from Lake County. She's got an office in Concord. The listing realtor lives 2 doors down in Geauga County. And I called her, I said, hey, you know anything about this? She's like, oh no, I've never heard anything about this. Well, that's a great answer. You're a realtor and.
Yeah. And again, we all forget stuff. I mean, that's just a reality. It is tough. The NOVs are violations. Those go out to homeowners. They're not very well received many times, especially when they're 3 years later. And this is just it's a special meeting to discuss all this, whether there was with it, it's talked about for a while, and the fact that we have to be moving on an operation and maintenance program. It's not anymore. We are in a
service contract with the manufacturer or the distributor of the jet system. They have come out twice a year. Is that the operation and maintenance?
Yeah.
Okay. And because I read something that says that they've done a sample and it was a visual of the effluent, something I don't, okay.
So I have a question, sir. So you said your system was put in 2018? Is that what you said? So I have a question. Did you renew and you bought the property in 2019?
Yes.
So I have a question. Did you renew your service providers?
Every year.
Okay. See, well, you're one of the very few, because unfortunately, what a lot of homeowners.
Better done a good job.
That's good to hear, though. Thank you.
No, yeah.
A lot of people don't do that. They forget about
I
it.
received a letter, I get email from postal services of what mails come. And it had the previous homeowner at my address from an EPA. I called and said, what's this about? And that's what they said it was for, and they said, well, the Geauga has got something too, you need to contact them. So
It sounds like you're from that, sure.
that's what I was told, but
Yeah.
It's still the what if, right?
well, no, I just want to make sure I'm on the right side of.
Yeah. No, we
We
appreciate
appreciate that. So, Mr. and Mrs. Frank,
Tag
what
team.
would you like to say?
Well, I guess I just have a couple things to throw out there. First of all, when you pick an end date, is that gonna be like transfers before this time and transfers after this time?
Correct. Cash transfer, or something that has cash transferring hands.
Title transfer.
Title transfer.
Everybody else, you waiting to, there'll be a whole bunch of transfers after that.
They're very open.
And you kick this back to us, the contractors or independent, whatever you want to call it, off lots that are existing with like septic tanks and filter beds. Are you gonna give us some guidance on how you want to, I mean, are we supposed to be doing effluent tests on those, or what are we gonna?
I mean, that
don't
septic
to
will have
answer that
to.
right now, Dan. It's
Yeah,
fine.
good, thank you.
I'm just saying it's something to think about, that when you, I mean, that's why you're gonna need some time to come up with a few of these things, so that you can, you know, and then whatever you do in the past, communication has not been very good with us guys.
Gotcha.
We find out when somebody calls up and says, well, they're doing this today, and it's different from what they did yesterday. So if we could have some guidance as to what, we'll do whatever we have to try and do, and we may kick back a little bit, or just have a discussion and say, this ain't gonna work, and we'll all scratch our heads and say yes or no. But we would just like to have an idea of what's going on, so that we can help you, you know, educate our customers, the people that are calling us, as to what's going on and when it's gonna happen and how it's gonna happen.
And
Just
my-
like your staff gets those calls,
Right.
we get them
Yeah.
every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we need to know what to tell them also.
And my hope is, because obviously it's a two-way street with everybody, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you fall on, two-way street. The hope would be bring back, my understanding is years and years and years ago, we used to have meetings with installers. The goal, as I pitched to the board at one point, was to bring those meetings back. Mr. Lark and I would obviously be leading with the team here at the Sanitarians, but to bring those communications with the installer, not only with the maintenance crews, but also with the realtors. So bring you guys into this room here, or we go out somewhere else, whatever size we need. Maybe provide a spread or something like that, but have that discussion. Here's new forms. Here's how we should be filled out. Here's how we need pictures. Here's how we need this. Because again, we're going to hit snags no matter what we do.
I understand.
But the goal is
That's fine.
minimal snags, because it's like the economy right now. Tolerances stack, and at some point you're not in tolerance anymore when they stack too much. So the goal is to reduce those to just enough tolerances that we have to have, but keep everybody else up and running and do what they need to do. And again, it won't be a perfect system, but the goal is to make sure everyone's as educated as possible. The public has an idea for the one to know. Installers are up and running, good answers, and the realtor answers, the installer answers, the helper answers all match, and they go, okay, this is what I got to do. It's not you're getting 3 different doctors that all say, broken leg, sprained ankle, you're fine. It's here's what you got, here's what you need to do to fix it, that's where you got to be at. And that's what I want to do. So education is going to be key. And I want to bring back, I'm not going to say they're going to be twice a year or quarterly, at least once a year. I'd like to have a meeting with the installers, everybody else, as well as realtors, where our team sits down. You can also meet the team. So if you have a question, you know what Eric's face looks like, you know what Dan Lars's face looks like. And everyone, you get a little bit further, I think, when you put a face to a name, it's a little more timid conversation in terms of, we gotta respect each other. I think, not so much over the phone sometimes, but, so we're hoping to bring that back relatively quickly, for everybody.
And I think just like I know Greg and you guys have been around like myself for quite a while, and I'm sure you remember when you used to do the point of sale, you used to do septic inspections before this county had point of sale, because we as realtors recommended our buyers or sellers get the inspection, right? Didn't you used to go out, right?
Yeah.
Greg?
Too
And
much
you,
liability now, though.
well, times change. I guess you need a bigger bond or something. I don't know. Right?
Well,
it's just-
for a few $100 to get a lawsuit, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Portage County, there's private installers that do those inspections, right?
Yeah, in Lake County, same thing.
In Lake County,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I think, people misunderstand. It's not that we don't want clean water. We're not looking to pollute, the streams and rivers and everything. We want clean water. We want everybody's septic system to function properly. But it's just a fact that the for sale of property has been in existence for 20-so years, and it has not, it doesn't fix everything. It's not a program that can be managed, and it's just not a good program that works. A perfect example is your grandmother could live in her house for 75 years next door, right? Never sell, and the next door neighbor, they're moving every 3 years, so that septic's been inspected every 3 years, but yet grandma's house is probably the one that is polluting, into the ditch. So those are things that are obviously getting missed, and hopefully with an O&M program, we can eliminate that.
I understand.
That's a good one, Rich, to bring up. So you take a little old lady who's in a house,
Uh-huh,
3 or 4 bedroom house,
uh-huh.
septic works fine, until you put a family of 5 or 6 in.
That's another
Blowing
thing.
out everywhere.
Right,
actually were just-
grandma uses maybe this much water a day, where, you move in with 3 or 4 kids, they're using
We were
this
actually
in a minute.
just
Right.
discussing that, kind of where it was flowing in was that, because my neighbors are the same way. I've got a little older couple, and when they go to sell, that system probably hasn't seen, much use over the years, but a family of 4 is going to decimate it.
Sorry.
So the O&M though should be proactive, and that's the goal, is proactive. We don't want to have, sewers coming in left and right, because, we get so far behind and they catch a bunch of them in a certain area, like has happened, we're dealing with one now. Plus it's state required. I mean, there's multiple facets, don't be wrong, but you want to jump back into, sorry, question?
Regarding the liability, in other counties where they're allowing septic installers to get certified, is there anything that comes from the county that gives you any type of proof of certification?
What do you mean certifications?
Like you've been,
To inspect.
if you're trying to get registered, more or less,
Yeah.
as a service provider that can take a sample. So is it documented at the county level that you?
No requirement for that.
No requirement, okay.
You mean
Is there
so
any
anybody could go
provisions that would
sample
offer
soil?
that Safety.
So
based
so
on-
you should be a service provider, so you're certain education,
So-
a certain license.
Is that what you're asking? Does a service provider have to get some sort of,
County level.
how do we
I'm just
know
wondering,
that?
regarding sampling specifically.
Yeah.
I have a bond as a service provider, but I'm not sure that it covers me
Well,
using professional.
now that,
measurements.
actually, you're supposed to be certified by the manufacturer.
So you don't
So
need
you
to
have to, so it's not just anybody. You should be certified in that type of unit currently with state rules.
So does a service provider have to show the county? that-
Yes.
Yeah.
They do.
They're on a
So
list.
there
We
is
keep a
some
list of
check,
that.
yeah, so that.
And it's for specific systems of which they're allowed to inspect. So for example, you have a certification for, let's say, Norweco Jet, couldn't go out and then inspect a different system that you're not a registered service provider for, correct?
Correct.
And those are renewed every year.
Certifications? I think so, yes.
So, can we move on, Veronica?
I'm actually gonna pass it through Rebecca first, and then back to me.
Okay, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Monatelli. I'm president of the Lake and Geauga Area Association of Realtors. I just want to thank you guys for putting this on the table and making it a priority. As Rich said, we are not here to just focus on what is best for the realtors. And ignore the septic system's functioning properly, make sure that everything's healthy. We just want to make sure that our homeowners are protected so that situations that, such as you guys have been in, are not happening any further. There's multiple facets, including, folks that have been in a property that haven't transferred in years versus one that's continuously transferring. We also have a backup. I can't tell you the number of calls that I get at the board from angry homeowners and realtors because of this kind of issue. So this, getting into effect will be huge for us. And I will tell you that we'll work with you guys at the board to make sure that the realtors are educated. We'll put out memos and things like that. We'll work with you to make sure that there's no misinformation, because to your point, there are a lot of realtors that are misinformed or don't even know that it's a thing. So we want to make sure that everybody's fully educated, but we really appreciate your time and addressing this.
Hi, I'm Veronica Cardello. I'm with the Ohio Realtors, so I did come in from Columbus. I do apologize for being late. I also want to thank you for being board members, because I know it is no small feat to be in front of the public, as I was a public myself. So I want to thank you very much for your service and everything that you've done in bringing this issue. So with me here today, I did bring an entire legal document as to why an operation and maintenance program works. And this is all across all 50 states. So I have this at your disposal. I also do have a PDF because I understand that this is really thick. So Control Find is my best friend. So when you're looking for something specific, so you're more than welcome to have this. So, but I also want to say that an operation and maintenance regulation program, it's going to encourage homeowners to do the right thing, to tackle the concerns that everybody has, so that you don't have the backlog, you don't have the stress and frustration that you're seeing here today. So I do apologize that this is happening to you, but this is part of the process. It's the ebbs and flows of the real estate transaction program. So I wanted to be here today to just reaffirm and reinforce that this is a great idea, this is phenomenal, and this is going to make the home transaction even more smooth for homeowners in Geauga County, because it is a stressful thing, and especially when you have to put $30,000 to $40,000 in escrow to fix a problem that you had no idea was a problem. It hurts. With 5% interest rates right now, and on top of the median household income of Geauga County only being $105,000, that's a lot of money for a homeowner. They can't take that. They can't afford it. They really can't. And you want people to live here in Geauga County. You want them to flourish in Geauga County. So when it comes to public awareness and letting the realtors know, we are more than happy to help. We have a whole team with Ohio Realtors that is absolutely more than willing to help you with a consumer campaign or to do anything to let everybody know that, hey, these are the new rules and regulations and whatnot. On our end with realtors, we will absolutely help you educate our realtors, because that is our responsibility. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients, so we are here to help. We are not here to hinder by any means. But again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking this matter seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up too, I appreciate that, and we are going to hold you to that too, because we do want to make sure our realtors are educated, and there's a lot of times, there's a lot of realtors that sell that aren't even in this county too, and unfortunately most of them don't always know how Geauga County operates, so that's where some of the problems I think come in. So, next.
I'll say one thing, as a realtor and as a previous installer, it's a kind of a pet peeve when I drive down the road and I see mounds that are mowed and I see, off lots that are growing grass in their little boxes. I think the O&M would be a good idea to educate the owners on things they should be kind of taken care of, because once trees start growing in that mound, it doesn't really make sense. You just wasted 30 grand. Oops, so loud. So, I don't know, that's the only thing I have to say.
I agree though, because you do see, yeah, I've seen that. You just see the giant pile of grass, it's like, It's
Commander, you have something to say?
Having been in real estate and having my license and lived all over the United States, are kind of the best place to live. You're going in the right direction. Jerry over there.
keep me on if nothing else.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you that $50 on that.
I don't take another.
Is there any additional questions or concerns? All right, and then I guess any questions or concerns from this side
On
either?
the board, anybody? Ms. Carolyn?
And I will keep in mind, Ashley, you cannot vote. If the board chooses to vote on anything tonight, you cannot vote, just as a reminder.
So does, nobody else wants us, Jerry, you're awful quiet, you're not gonna say nothing.
The only thing I would add is whether it's O&M or for sale of property, or, I think it's been said, main importance is education. Educating people. People who've lived in Geauga County all their life don't understand septic.
Yeah.
People moving in from outside of Geauga County don't understand septic. And I, luckily, because of my background in sanitary engineering, I understand it. And when I bought my house here in Geauga County, first thing I did was I created I went and opened up a separate savings account that every month I put in what I paid for sewer, because eventually something's going to happen with that septic system, and I need to fix it. But you're going to need to have something, some kind of enforcement with whatever you do, because as much as people will want to do the right thing, when it comes down to it, and they have to say this or do this, one that's going to be enforced is the thing they're going to do.
And we, so Jerry's actually the county commissioners. I go to their meeting every Tuesday, and we actually just had a meeting last week ago. When people had their system, and, I asked when it was pumped last, and he lived there for many years, never had it. And my first time with Jerry was probably a thickly yellow. There's probably moving a lot. They had no idea. They're like, why would I get pumped? It works.
And as to that, the one is a septic system. With something to maintain septic systems within the county, we're going to wind up having sewer systems going in. There's going to be sewer systems that are going anyway, just because of you're dealing with older subdivisions that were put in back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s with acre lots or less than acre lots, or the properties that we have that are that aren't even eighth of an acre lots that 100 years ago were created as weekend cottages for the people in Cleveland to come out.
The lake communities.
Those are going to be troublesome going forward. Absolutely. What we want to avoid is the bigger issues. As the county administrator, I'm also the sanitary engineer, so I'm responsible for that too. And as I always tell people, more sewer in this county doesn't make my life easier. Right. So I don't, I'd probably get in trouble with, but I don't want to see any more sewer in the county. It doesn't benefit the residents. It doesn't benefit water resources.
And I think Berkshire Estates is the one we're dealing with right now is a prime example of maybe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and unfortunately we're catching these things after the fact, and that one was sewered. And Jerry, if you remind the board or else, what was the cost per homeowner for that to be tied into those sewers?
The actual cost per property is about $45,000. They're being assessed at $28,000. So the county's picking up
the average price of the houses in there, do you know what that is?
The average market price of the houses is around 110 to 150.
So that's considerably on the lower end of the cost of homes in Geauga County, correct?
50-some thousand, that's almost half the taxable value is being just putting in the sewer when we.
And that's a direct, that was findings and orders from the Ohio EPA.
And hopefully the O&M would catch that. It's more proactive, so we'd be testing, the service providers would be testing. We'd be proactive and not have another states issue on our, Berkshire Estates issue on our hands.
You'll catch the failing septic systems as they're failing, not,
and
20 years down the road.
And like Jerry and I have talked about, one of my concerns is that we have, like Rich mentioned, the houses that sell over and over and over, they're usually nicer houses. Those are getting tested once every 5 or 6 years. The houses that aren't changing hands, the ones that aren't getting tested, when they do, we have a Berkshire Estates issue or something else where look at that, 20% fail or 30% fail or whatever. So,
Well, and again, it's the education system, because most people don't understand. You should have your septic system pumped out every 1 to 3 years, depending on how many people you have living in it. Your average individual doesn't understand that.
right.
And, I know there was a question, one of the previous meetings I was at, or the concern about the cost of, charging people for these services. And it was $100 every 4 years, or whatever the number was. The one thing to keep in mind is, well, you can charge $100 every 4 years right now, or eventually when all those systems fail and the sewer system goes in, and it's $100 every month.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah, agreed.
Counts as prevention.
We're trying to invest in the county, obviously.
So Dan, there's a note here, the WPCLF, the water pollution
Yeah.
control. You want to talk about how that option is available
Sure.
for some homeowners that
Yep. So-
maybe cannot afford to have a septic?
Yeah, so the county receives $150,000 to help low-income people fix or replace their septic system, and also percent of that money is allowed to help people, if they meet the income requirements, tie into sanitary sewer. So there's $150,000 every year, and it's income-based, so they'll either, if they qualify, it's either for 50% coverage, 85% coverage, or 100% coverage.
And we were prioritizing that program, it's a little bit different this year. We're prioritizing that to use the full $150,000, not to, use a small portion of it, so.
We get it every year.
Yeah, but if we don't use it, we lose it, right?
Yeah, but we'll use it.
Yeah, right, we could.
But we've lost it in the past. We haven't used it in the past.
I think last year we did not use.
Yeah, no, no, that's crazy. So
Yeah.
Veronica, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question for Dan. So I know that working with the state and all of the different communities that I work in, so I know all of Ohio, not just Homestead, but everybody received a very healthy amount of American Rescue Plan Act dollars to help with sewer water infrastructure. Is there any money being allocated to Geauga County for those needs?
I believe that's goes to the
I am not
commissioner's
sure
office.
that's Jerry's favorite topic.
Jerry,
The county did get $18 million. Jerry, if you want to talk, you can. If not, that's fine.
no, the funds are out there with ARPA. We have not expended any of them at this point yet. So, but they are there.
Okay, so maybe that's part of the bigger conversation, because those dollars are like use it or lose it until 2024, so December 31st. And we've been working with a lot of different communities throughout all of Ohio to take that money, because water and infrastructure, like water, sewer, and infrastructure itself are three big components here in Ohio that have been underfunded for years. Like, when I say like 20 plus years, that's being generous. So I think that maybe this is the opportunity to take some of those funding to help offset those costs that you may be encountering, or that homeowners may be encountering because of these requirements that we need to transition to. It's just a thought. It can be something that we talk about separately, absolutely, but I think it's something that we as Ohio Realtors have been helping other communities work through all those bumps and growing pains that everybody is seeing, but we want to see, again, doing what's best in the interest of homeownership and making sure that people stay here in Ohio. That's the other key, because that, like, as you saw, or as you've seen, like, we lost a congressional seat, because the population is declining. So it's the reality of it. We got to do whatever it takes to keep people here in Ohio.
Before ARPA dollars were a thing, Jerry actually had long, flowing brown hair. that was just before ARPA, like literally like a day before, and then now still handsome as heck, but not gorgeous locks.
Well, with the loss of point of sale, aren't you in need of funds for the department?
The O&M will offset some of it. The hard part is knowing exactly what offsets, because there's multiple factors in there that we necessarily can't account for 100% in terms of, are there optional sales that go through? Are there less systems than expected somehow? Are there more systems than expected somehow, which we're probably expecting more than less? The other reason to have O&M up and running, hopefully by 1/1/2023, is a funding issue. Our levy is 25 years old. I think when I talked to Alta, she converted 25 years old. It's been renewed for that extension period. So we're still working on dollars that were theoretically from the same amount, so from 25 years ago. So yes, it is there are multiple issues. The WPCLF, we're trying to prioritize that. Those dollars were not used so much last year. Make sure the homeowners had nuts available. Maybe some do qualify, maybe some don't qualify. We also talked to you about, if the folks from Berkshire Estates can qualify, we can help them with that. I know the county's helping them with some fees and other things. I think, Jerry's trying to bend over backwards, I think, to help them as much as he can. So we're trying to do the best we can. There's a lot of balls in the air for all those different things. So.
And we certainly want to continue to be fiscally responsible too. We're not looking to bankrupt the department or anything.
That was a great time for new levy, I heard. It's a great economy for that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, the room, man.
Yeah.
So do we want to discuss the dates or about implementing this, or are everybody on board with this, or?
So we're confident we can educate the public appropriately, that the realtors.
They sound like they're good on their end.
How much time do you guys need to roll this out?
Veronica?
So if you give me, if you stick with the 6 weeks, because it's sounding like June 30th is probably a pretty comfortable number. If you give me a 6-week lead time, I can get literature out to our realtors as early as next week. But then also, I want to help with the consumer side of it. That's going to take at least 2 weeks for me to get under the wing.
And I would like to theoretically pull Elgar in to do a training, as to now it's optional. Here's how we can do it. Here's some hopeful timelines, at least. We don't know 100% yet. But obviously, education, whether it's eating right or it's taking care of your car or your kids, education, it tends to be the leading cause for things not to go right. I mean, the less we educate, the worse things get. So, I mean, I'd hope we'd be able to bring in Mr. Lark and assist with that. Obviously, the board can as well, not a quorum, but the board can assist to educate. I mean, that's going to be, I think, the key to making this work and O&M work. It's going to be 100% education.
So what's the mechanism going to be? Obviously, the Facebook or the website will
The
be
website.
one. You're going to have a whole section dedicated to this.
Yep, we'll have social media, we'll have websites.
What about mailers or anything like that?
We can look at doing that with, I know you'd mentioned that you have an ability, I don't want to say what you have, but you have an ability, it sounds like.
So we did this in Geauga County,
Okay.
and it was 266,000 residents in a matter of 3 weeks. So
Okay.
I think it's like I said, if you give me like that 6-week time frame, I can't promise you more, but we can definitely get it out before that June 30th deadline, and even after.
Okay.
Because I know it's going to be a continuous education.
Right.
You think a month is too short? A month is too short?
A month. So if we did it like by June 17th, the problem is the processing on our end. It's just a matter of getting it to our people, getting the right message too, because I don't want you guys to not see the message. It's going to, really, if that makes sense.
But you guys are willing to reach out to the public?
Well, yes, because we have a consumer advocacy campaign that we run all the time.
Well, that's huge.
We'll send
I mean,
the
that's
mailer
something
to
we
all
don't.
houses. You'll get it at your house.
We don't have that, obviously.
So
And we
that's
don't have that capability.
to our benefit. So if you need,
They mailed all of Burton Village.
Yes, we would do mailers for all of Geauga County, and then at Elgar on our level, we'll also send out through our social media channels as well as memos from myself and the board to all of our realtors. We'll set up classes to make sure that we have that lined up so they can add it to their schedule to educate them.
And I would hope to probably put Magali in contact with them. She's our social media person. That way we can, the cross promotion is there.
She'd work great with Rebecca.
Yeah. So.
And Veronica.
Not Veronica, just Rebecca.
And we can do geo-targeting too, so like, I don't know if you've ever been on like Facebook, Instagram, or whatnot, and you see like those little advertisements.
Yep.
So we do geo-targeting too, so you'll get that little pop-up. Hey, have you had your septic system like inspected or updated or however which way you want to.
Ironically, we were just talking about that, so I mean, obviously I use social media for some companies I do stuff with, but we're talking more of using that. We're relatively new, honestly, to social media here at GPH, but we're trying to maximize it because that is where people are at nowadays.
well, the older populations aren't though.
Not all,
And they're the
no.
ones who are going to be sitting on that 60-year septic tank. So-
That's where
And we need to worry
mailings,
about
amongst
the
other
Amish
things, are going to be
population,
important.
The Amish population.
Yeah.
So
That's where the
definitely
mailers are going now.
The Amish,
Really
the
helpful.
Amish population, we have talked about using the bishops and whatnot
Yeah.
through obviously myself, Mr. Lark, the team here, to bring them in that way, same as we do for other things. When they have their vaccination clinics and other things, we bring them in through that aspect. Because they're not going to see it on those conventional means that maybe the rest of the, the Yankees
I mean,
can
I'm
see it.
52 and I don't click on that stuff. I don't even have Facebook anymore, so I like the good for you.
Sorry, one more question.
How many FSPs do you think you're gonna get in the month of June? Just guessing.
How many FSOPs will think we'll get just in June?
What did you get in May? Any idea?
I don't know monthly, we've gotten close to 400 this year so far.
Yeah.
So say you got another
60, 70.
Yeah, I would say somewhere south of 100 is what my first thought was, just based off the numbers I saw. But
I'm trying to understand what the rush is to make it happen like tonight or.
So more don't come in.
You got 30 days, you might have 62.
Don't forget, most of the new contracts will now have transfer dates post the June 30th date. We are more recently, because of our inventory issue, which is now picking up, looking at some longer close dates. So we're already mid to late May. Most of our new contracts, the transfer dates are going to be post that June 30th. That's good to know.
Okay,
That-
thank you. And if people know that the date's coming, maybe they'll hold off. I mean, maybe the calls will go down or the permits because the message will be out hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yeah, the message is gonna be out in 2 weeks.
So people are
Everybody's
they're gonna be like,
stop
done,
their-
yeah.
Yeah, why would I put money in
Right.
escrow?
So
I'm
our-
just gonna keep my
Well,
money,
some will still
and
be
then I'll sell the
inspections.
house.
There'll still be inspections. Don't think there won't be. I mean, there's trust.
No,
me.
it's not a matter
I'm
of
not
that.
gonna walk a property and be like, you're good. I'm gonna be like, you better get that inspected.
It's not a matter of that, it's just a matter of
It's just not
what
gonna be
person
right.
would wanna put $30,000 in an escrow account when they know June 30th, they don't have to do it anymore. I mean,
It's not, I mean,
yeah,
the
I
market's
mean, that's
so
the
free,
thing.
it's not a lot of-
But there's a ton of people that have families and stuff
What he
like
usually does
that
is
that know
write it
it
down as we go.
and will not take care of it.
Well, keep in mind, just because we are making it mandatory doesn't mean they won't do it. I know, like, 10 years ago, the loan my wife and I had, it was not required at the time, and there we moved to, you still had to, it was still a requirement of the loan. Not to mention that, as the realtor said, I know my realtor said, even if we didn't have that loan, you have to do that. That's a good thing to do. Now, of course, not everyone will.
Yeah.
Now, the other reason, though, is to get, I think, to your question is, it helps get the backlog cut off at that point where we don't have backlog adding every single day. The other thing is that operation and maintenance program, my tentative date of 1/1/2023, that's 6 months of us working on that. I mean, 24/7 for the most part, trying to get that up and running. So
What does the
it's,
state
What
say?
else did we?
sorry, what's that?
In place.
There's not, the state doesn't, to my understanding, does not have a date you have to. The soft date we've been told is 1/1/2025, I think is when it was 12/31/2024. That's the date they expect that to be significant process made or progress made and moving in that direction.
Just to be clear, I agree with all that.
Later, and they
Okay.
want to do it.
Yeah.
Put no one in.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Because there's a
FSP.
I got you.
They found.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, my goal is, I've done septic my whole life except for 1 year. The goal is to make sure we can maintain our septics, we don't have another Berkshire Estates come up. Operation maintenance, I think will do that, and hopefully the board is unified in that decision to, I don't say unified, but promoting that area of going to operation maintenance. The FSOP, we had talked, we still make it optional if someone wanted it. I think you say your realtors are probably gonna push it, not that it has to be done, but they'll push it. But the hope is to catch, there's just systems that aren't being tested.
I still think lenders will require it.
You think we should require it?
No, I think lenders will.
Oh, lenders. And that's a possible, I mean, I know the loan we had,
Inspection.
the loan I had, we had to. Because it was a, I think it was an FHA loan, so it was more a rural area, and it was required, not.
Greg, in Lake County, I mean, we do less than 100 a year. But I bet you it's private guys like you guys do way more than that. So I think there's probably a lot more work for private. Well, you said you don't like them because you get sued. So that might be you.
They were a couple $100. They were.
Dan, do you want to talk about those small flows too, or is that appropriate or no?
I don't know if that's something for next, that's something we'd have to present and do resolutions and stuff like that. So
Okay.
that's a little bit of maybe in the next meeting or something.
Okay, got it. So what do you think there, ladies?
I think we're good. Did you want to read this?
No, you can go ahead since you added on.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, I got a question.
Well, let's
Yeah,
wait
you're
till I
just
have
gonna
it.
start off with that.
So he doesn't
Going on
miss
one
it.
NDES, you said, right? And
I mean, just from experience, that's like a nice
That's where you're gonna start.
low-hanging fruit, so to speak.
And then how are you gonna transition into the leach fields, the filter beds? All, because those are the ones that
Yep.
are, you know.
No, we'll come up with
Even
a-
if they were brand new, they wouldn't meet the standards of today unless you put sand in them.
I mean, really, the bottom line is it creating a public health nuisance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. So we'll look at if there's causing issues and getting people to maintain them, but, you know, we'll have to come up with something for the different types of systems and what we expect for people to maintain them in the permit.
Do you have like a time frame for the other ones that you think that you're gonna inspect? Like how frequently will the other ones be inspected, or?
I mean, from what we did in the other county, we did either 1 or 5 year timeframes.
No.
So, and then that way.
And if you want to say that,
kind of correlates with your permit frame, and so whether you're pumping it out every 5 years, or, you know, if you have a discharging system, there's some that by code you have to do on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of go by manufacturer recommendations also, and what type of, obviously some of the ones you're talking about, there's no manufacturer recommend anything.
Yeah.
So that'll be something, you know, we'll have to sit down, probably give some search private, get some recommendations on.
So the state doesn't have a set time, like the state in this mandate that they have, does it say these systems have to be done during X amount of time?
Some do. There are some that do have in code how often they need to be maintained, but it's only some of them.
And the permits can't exceed 10 years, if I remember. The permits can't exceed 10 years, if I recall correctly.
I think so.
They cannot exceed 10.
Yeah, so you can't
And that
have.
was one of our problems. We had permits for 20 years. That was something we had, Greg, permits for 20 years for new septics, and technically the state did not approve that.
I think that was.
They recommended 10-year maximum.
That was that letter they sent us.
I didn't put the.
I'm just saying, you know, you are an installer, so I'm picking
I
on
didn't put the ink to
you.
the paper.
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay.
I want to move to discontinue the mandatory for sale property inspections effective June 30th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. All property transfers prior to that date and time are still subject to inspections.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Branke?
Yes.
Miss Dr. Jones?
Abstain.
Okay. Dr. Levan?
Yes.
And Moreno? Yes. That motion passes. All right. Anything else?
You guys would have really do action on.
Pardon me?
Not that you can do action on, it was just a special meeting for that.
Right.
So you guys can adjourn if you wanted to. Unless there's
So,
additional.
you got a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Adjourn.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.